Leveling up. Extreme business growth through raising your game. When what was once extraordinary becomes ordinary, you know you've leveled up.
Hello and welcome to the second instalment of our theme this week, which is getting on top of our psychology, becoming unbreakable, combating what I'm seeing out there in the world around me right now, which is a lot of business owners, a lot of individuals and people starting to slip into despair. Welcome to the Leveling Up podcast with me, George Swift, from Bigger, Brighter, Bolder. The Leveling Up podcast is here to give you the personal development, the entrepreneurial development and the business growth that you, the ambitious business owner, desires. I'm here to give you the inspiration, the motivation, but above all else to challenge your aspirations to take you and your business to the next level. Don't forget to subscribe and never miss an episode. I don't know if you're starting to feel despair. I don't know if you can see yourself heading down that route, maybe just feel a little bit low, or whether you're still riding really high. But regardless of kind of how you feel today, I think it's really important that we are mindful of the sense of despair that is really starting to brew, certainly around the UK at the moment. And as I said in Monday's episode 238, when I talked about becoming unbreakable, there isn't really an accident into why people are starting to feel like that. So I want to move this narrative along a little bit. I want to give you a little bit more information. If you haven't listened to episode 238, you might want to go and listen to that one first, because I kind of set up a lot of the themes that I'm going to be going into a little bit more detail on in this episode. But to give you a really short, brief update, when I talked about becoming unbreakable, what I said was you had to be aware of the psychological attack that is currently coming at us in this country through government and through the media. And if you want to get a more balanced view on what I mean when I say that, then please don't make your judgment now. Go and listen to that episode and hear me out. But basically, we are being bombarded with news, if you want to call it that. I'm leaning towards this more as propaganda, and I have done for many, many months. And this propaganda has been orchestrated in order to manipulate desired results, desired behaviours within the population. Now, again, I said this on Monday, I'll repeat it now. Regardless of whether you believe that the government's ambitions of what they want us to do are right or wrong, I think we can agree that we don't want to live in a society where we're being mass manipulated through our psychology into doing that action. I keep saying it, I'll say it again. I'd much rather be educated and informed into making a decision for myself than being coerced and manipulated by someone else. I've shared opinions over the past months about what I feel about the course of action that the government's taken and we're going on. That isn't really up for debate right now. It's irrelevant whether you and I agree or disagree with the course of action that our government is taking. What is important is that we understand how we can become more resilient, how we can better stand up in the face of this barrage of negativity and despair that is starting to be felt throughout this country, because fundamentally it's important that you keep getting up, moving forward, doing what you need to do in order to protect your family, preserve your family, protect and preserve your business. In order for you to be a better performing business owner, we need to make sure that your spirits are high. We need to make sure that you are absolutely firing on all cylinders. And you can't do that, of course, if you're starting to feel down, let alone if you're starting to feel desperate and in despair. So these episodes this week are an unplanned narrative that I want to share with you, because I think it's so important that before we get stuck into the nitty gritty of tactics and strategies and what you need to do in your business and maybe what you shouldn't be doing in your business right now, I think it's all kind of superfluous if you're not feeling on top of your game, if you're not feeling up for it, if you're not feeling like you're up for the fight, if you're feeling a bit beaten down, a bit broken, if you're feeling in despair, then of course, right, anything I share with you is a little bit redundant if that's where you're at or if that's what you're feeling. I wanted to kick off this episode by sharing a snippet of an interview that Tony Benn, the British politician, had back in 2007. So hear what he's got to say, and then I'll talk to you about why I think that's relevant to where we're at today.
See, I think there are two ways in which people are controlled. First of all, frighten people, and secondly, demoralise them. An educated, healthy and confident nation is harder to govern And I think there's an element in the thinking of some people. We don't want people to be educated, healthy and confident because they would get out of control. The top 1% of the world's population own 80% of the world's wealth. It's incredible that people put up with it, but they're poor, they're demoralised, they're frightened, and therefore they think perhaps the safest thing to do is take orders and hope for the best.
So what Tony Benn is saying there, that if you want to control people, if you want to control the population, you either terrorise them or you demoralise them. And regardless of whether you believe it's a deliberate act right now or it's an accidental occurrence right now, that is the pattern that we have been taken through. I referred to it in the last episode and I've talked about it throughout most of 2021. You know, initially we had the era of fear. It was all about fear. Use fear to manipulate the population to follow orders. Then we went from fear into what I called the era of uncertainty. So we went through the phase of uncertainty, create more and more uncertainty. And we had month after month of uncertainty after uncertainty. Because fear, you can't really keep fear for that long. We don't stay fearful for very long. Uncertainty, we can hold on to that feeling, that experience for some time. And now we're going into what I'm calling the phase of despair. In other words, I believe that it's not an accident, but even if you do believe it is an accident, the messaging that we're getting is one of demoralizing the people. And on Monday, I talked about how we've all gone back to the beginning and the language took us back to the beginning. And the way the announcement came about this latest lockdown wasn't about this is the next phase of handling the coronavirus. It was much more one of taking us back to the beginning. And that's why I'm finding so many people out there that have that sensation. They feel like they're back at the beginning. They feel like they've gone through everything last year for nothing. And they're starting to feel this despair setting in. The kids coming home again. I can't go through this again. It's going to be so tough again. And the reason that's so intrinsically linked with this feeling of despair that we're having is because instead of going from, tier 1, tier 2 in December, then going into tier 4 for many of us at Christmas, having Christmas taken away, very demoralising, then going into all the chaos in the news over the Christmas to New Year period, then it was the kids are going to go back 100%, and then in 24 hours, complete U-turn again, and the kids now have to then stay at home after one day of schooling. And instead of saying, this is the next phase, we're going from tier 4 to tier 5, or we're moving forward, the messaging, and I break it down and share with you exactly why I believe it was deliberate, intentionally took us back to the beginning. And that is demoralizing. That's the equivalent of going to the gym, having a personal trainer say, right, run on the treadmill. You run on the treadmill for an hour. Then at the end of that hour, instead of the personal trainer saying, right, give me 10 more minutes, what he does is say, you know what, sorry, I wasn't counting. My watch hadn't started. I want you to go back to the beginning. That's a very different vibe to one of, give me 10 more minutes, give me 10 more minutes. So over this week, this whole become unbreakable, this fortitude, this resilience that I want to instill in people to brace themselves against the onslaught of the messaging that's coming from government and from media right now so that they can better focus on their businesses, on their lives and on their agenda, is to become aware of this. Because when you become aware of this, you can take yourself out of that narrative and you can protect yourself to some degree from it. But also you get to reframe what's going on. And for me, I would say to you really simple, this is just the next thing we have to get through. It's not going back to the beginning. It's not that the whole of last year was pointless or a waste of time. We haven't gone back to the beginning. The narrative is one definitely of taking us back to the beginning, but that's not where we are. What we are, we're at the next stage, the next phase. And if this had been going from tier 4s into tier 5s, or from tier 4 into a lockdown, and it was narrated to us as the next phase, then that would be a very different sensation that we would be feeling, even though we'd be in the same set of circumstances, opposed to the one where we've been taken back to the beginning. And that's what's really demoralizing people. And that's what's really setting in that sense of despair. And I can hear it in language patterns. I can see it with my own eyes that people are starting to have that feeling of being demoralized, and it's so unfair for us because as business owners, we've done everything we've been asked of. We've fought hard. It's been one of the toughest years ever for many business owners across my success groups. It upset and destabilized businesses, and they regrouped Some of them had to change how they did business. Some had to really revamp their products and their delivery, certainly how they went about delivering their products and about how they sold their products. And many business owners have had to regroup themselves mentally and emotionally. And they did that. And then to find themselves back in a place where they feel like it was all for naught, it's all for nothing, is incredibly demoralizing. And my message to my group is going to be the same as I'm giving to you right now, which is it's not going back to the beginning. It wasn't pointless. We're not back there in March 2020. We are here now in January 2021. This is the next hurdle, the next phase, the next challenge. It's bolted on to all the other challenges. I know you're tired. I know you're worn down. I said this at the end of last year and over Christmas. Take the time out. I said it. To get away from the media, to decompress, to regroup, to, be with your family, to rejuvenate your soul. Because I said to you, January and February going into March were going to be tough months, right? And that's really what I was trying to set you up for, was not this case of going back to the beginning, but rather the next battle, the next fight, the next challenge is waiting for us. And that's just the next thing we have to go through. We got through the first lockdown. We went through all the uncertainties over summer. We went through all of the uncertainties and shenanigans of autumn. We went into winter. We got through all the Christmas disruptions. That's starting to break some souls. That was right there. And then we come out in January and people are thinking, right, let's get back on the business. Let's get back into life. We're being told the kids are going back. Nothing's going to get in the way of that. One day later, complete U-turn. Again, kids are at home, having to homeschool. The language is one of right back at the beginning. We're seeing the images that are taking us back to the beginning. And instead of us being on this journey, and instead of us feeling like we're at the end of this journey, it feels like we've gone right back to the beginning of this journey, and that is demoralizing. And it will start to turn itself into despair. Over the next weeks and over the next couple of months or so, there's more in store. You've only got to look at how the information is being fed to us now to see that it's not one of trying to instill hope in us. It's not one of trying to make us feel good, feel strong, feel positive. The messaging is designed and constructed and being delivered in a way to start to create that despair, to demoralize. Christmas is definitely on. Christmas, nothing's going to get in the way. It'd be a travesty. It would be so damaging to people's psychology if we were to cancel Christmas. That was the message just a few days before Christmas was cancelled. Kids are going back. 100% kids going back. All these parents, especially you guys, business owners, are all sitting there saying, right, the kids go back, then I can get my head down. Bang, like within 24 hours. We're told we're going into a lockdown. That lockdown's going to take us up to the February half term. Within 12 hours, like the next morning, Michael Gove is on TV saying that he thinks the lockdown will take us into March. So they've already extended it another couple of weeks at least within 12 hours. Within 24 hours of that, we were hearing signs that this lockdown was going to take us deep into March, and now we're getting communicated this lockdown could take us into April. I don't want to be the harbinger of doom here. That could stretch out beyond that. I believe it's very possible the messaging is going to continue down that route. Rather than give you one piece of bad information, it's better to hit you and hit you and hit you. So if I give you one big punch in the boxing ring, I may knock you out flat, but the chances are you'll get back up and you'll fight on. But if I stick you with a hard left and then stick you with a hard right and then stick you in the ribs and then hit you with the other one, eventually what happens is you're so beaten that you drop to your knees and you just can't get back up again. You're a demoralized fighter. And again, regardless of whether you believe it's deliberate or intentional, I do paint a picture on Monday as to why I think it is and how it's playing out and giving you some hints and tips on how you can see what's occurring. The way it's being handled is one of creating despair, and it is demoralizing. And even if it's not intentional, it is the impact that it's having. And given the experts that the government has access to, and given the understanding that media has, it's very hard to imagine that they are not aware of how this plays out. And therefore, I'm very skeptical to presume that this is accidental. But regardless of what you believe to be true, the simple truth is the way that we're being managed and handled in this country is one of initially fear, then creating uncertainty, and now it's going into creating despair. Thinking you're having Christmas, everyone working so hard for Christmas, and then pulling it out at the last minute, that shit breaks souls. Thinking your kids are going back, sending your kids back to school, And then 24 hours later, that's it. One day, boom, done. Your kids are now at home, not just for the next few days, not the next few weeks, but for minimum 6 weeks, then minimum 2 months, and now looking like it could be 3 months or even more. It breaks souls. And when they break your soul, if your soul is broken, when despair sets in, you become easier to control and easy to manage, just as Tony Benn said. And maybe that's their intentional plan. They've got a course of action they want to roll out, and they think the quickest, easiest, simplest way, instead of informing and educating, is to manipulate, coerce and cajole people through manipulation to get them to do what they want them to do. And maybe that's the point. Put them in despair, demoralize them, and then they'll do what you want them to do. And even if you agree with the government's course of action, you think it's the right course of action, I would argue it's not the right way of getting that result. Or whether it's something more sinister, it will stop you from having the quality of life that you want to have. It will stop you performing at the level you want to. It will stop you showing up in your business and your life at your best. And ultimately, it's going to make it harder for you to be successful in life and in business. And right now, you need everything you've got in order to maintain the business that you currently have. And I do believe it's still possible to grow that business throughout 2021. But it's going to be hard to do that if you're in despair. It's going to be hard to do that if you're demoralized. It's going to be really hard to do if you're broken. So this week is all about becoming unbreakable. Monday's episode was titled that, Become Unbreakable. And the way I'm trying to help you become unbreakable is to get you to see the onslaught that's coming your way, to see the manipulation. Because if you can see it, just as I described in Monday's episode, it's a bit like being at a horror film and reminding yourself it's just a film. It doesn't necessarily take away all the horror. It doesn't take away the gore, but it does take away the worst of the impact of that film. And it's the same with the current narrative playing out in the world around us. If we just listen to the news and listen to the government, it will lead us into despair. Chris Whitty came out just a day after we were told that this could go on into March and certainly maybe even into April. Chris Whitty comes out and he's already talking about the lockdowns this winter coming. Not the one we're in, but the winter of 2021 going into 2022. Even if they believe it's possible that we might still need to go into lockdown next winter, that the vaccinations don't work, I'm guessing, is what they're saying, or that the cases are going to go down like they did last summer because of the summer, and then they're going to reoccur next autumn and winter, despite the mass vaccination. Even if they believe and perceive it's possible we might have to go into lockdown then, why would you announce that as part of the onslaught, the left, right, uppercut, right cross? Why would you relentlessly keep bringing that information into the psyche of your people? It doesn't need to be said. Number one, he's not saying it's 100%. He's not saying it's guaranteed. His words were, don't expect this coronavirus just to go away when the summer comes. It's possible, I'm paraphrasing, that we may need to go into lockdown and bring in some restrictions next winter as well. Why does that need to even be fucking said after schools were going back? They are not going back. Lockdown announced, lockdown extended again. Why would you need to talk about next winter when we're still in the middle of this battle? It serves absolutely no purpose at all. What it does do is it demoralizes people. It creates despair. It makes people want to give up. And when people want to give up, they'll do two things. They'll stop fighting for what's theirs, and they'll start conforming to somebody else's. And right now, I want you to fight for what's yours. I want you to fight for your goals and your agenda and your business. I want you to fight for the future that you want for you and your family. And even if you agree with the government course of action, if you agree with what the government is saying, irrespective of that, protect yourself from the onslaught of the propaganda machine that is the media and government that is constantly selling you these stories and selling you this narrative and manipulating you emotionally. And start to step outside of that narrative. Remind yourself that this is my real life, the one in my business, the one that I'm working towards, the one that I'm setting up, the future that I'm creating for myself. This is real life. And the one you're sharing with me, it's a story, it's a narrative, it's a horror film. And it won't take away all of the horror, all of the fear, all of the anxiety. Of course it won't. But just like being in the cinema and reminding yourself it's a film, it enables you to separate yourself slightly from that narrative, from that storyline, and therefore you can protect yourself from the emotions of despair, from the emotions of feeling like you're breaking, like you can't handle it, like you can't do it again. So again, I'm going to say it one more time, regardless of whether you agree or disagree with the course of action that the government are taking, I would say it is not appropriate. It's not the world that I want to live in, where I am manipulated into taking action, even if it's the right action for me. I want to live in a world where I am educated and informed into making decisions rather than coerced and manipulated into them. And even if they need more people to do what they want to do, to go out and demoralize the population and to create despair, to break the souls of a nation, I believe is not the right thing to do, even if you were believing that the overall result is the one that you think is the right thing. I set the challenge on Monday and I'll set it again today. Try and step outside the story, try and step outside the narrative, and try and look in as if it was a film, and listen to the news and listen to the media, and just ask yourself, do they really have my best interests at heart here? Like, is this news here to inform me or to coerce me, to manipulate me? Is this information here to make me feel good about myself and feel better and feel empowered about life and to motivate me to go out and live a better life and to be successful and creative and to go out and work hard? Or does this narrative, does this story, does it feel like this messaging is designed to make me feel a little bit shit, a little bit worse, to create a little bit more despair, to break me just that little bit more? Does it feel like someone pumping me up, or does it feel like someone knocking me down? And once again, this isn't about not being educated. This isn't about not watching the news. This isn't about your opinion versus my opinion. I just want you to step outside, see it for what it is, because when you can see it for what it is, you'll desensitize yourself slightly to it. You'll be more resilient. You'll become unbreakable by it. And then you'll be able to continue to grow your business, work on your business, and do what we need you to do as a society to make sure that your business is successful, because we need more successful small businesses. It's my absolute mission to restore the balance to society by creating more successful small businesses. If you want to know more about that mission, go and listen to previous episodes. I talk about it verbatim. We need more successful small businesses to counteract the onslaught of the negativity that's created in this world by global dominating mega corporations. And at the moment, the world we're living in is one where the global dominating mega corporations get wealthier and more powerful and richer, and where small business owners are becoming fewer in numbers and are becoming poorer and therefore becoming weaker, and therefore we're having less of a positive impact that we have, which in my opinion readdresses the imbalance from these mega corporations. That's my mission, and I hope it's one that you and I can agree upon, even if we agree upon nothing else. And that is that we need you to be successful in 2021. And that's my absolute commitment to you through this podcast and through everything that I do this year. If you want to know a little bit more about how we're helping business owners just like you to level up, then please do go and check us out at biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk. If you want to talk to us, then my partner in life and in business, Tracy Miller, would love to have a conversation with you. You can reach out via email at tracy.miller@biggerbrighterbolder.co.uk. I'll drop both those links in descriptions of this episode. She would love to hear from you about where you are now and where you're trying to get to this year, and to help you understand maybe how we might be able to facilitate that with you. Regardless of whether you're just launching your business now, whether you're doing 20, 30, 40, 50K and you want to build your business to 100K plus, or if you're already doing 100K or more in turnover and you want to scale your business, then we have groups of entrepreneurs and business owners just like you waiting to support you on that journey. We did incredible things in 2020 despite all of the hindrances, all of the impacts, all of the challenges that year had to offer. We're going to go and do the same again in 2021. I would love you to be a part of that. Check us out. Reach out to us. We'd love to hear from you. Either way, I'll be back here next time, as always. Until then, be successful.
Leveling up. Extreme business growth through raising your game. When what was once extraordinary becomes ordinary, you know you've leveled up.